everybody, welcome back to Let's Talk. My name is John, and today on the channel we're going to be talking about 2015's Sicario and its 4K Blu-ray. So Sicario was originally released back in October of 2015. It is directed by Denis Villeneuve. So before he started playing in the sand with Dune Part 1 and Dune Part 2, he was playing in the sand with Sicario. And this is arguably his best film in my opinion. And that's because we got great talent at every single level. Besides just being directed by Denis Villeneuve, who is one of our greatest working directors right now, especially when it comes to the blockbuster genre. There's him and there's Christopher Nolan. The two of them really know how to make these highbrow blockbusters that are just so much more than just explosions and eye candy. They have very deep stories, they have great scores, and they have great cinematography. And this film is written by Taylor Sheridan. This is before he did all the Yellowstone shows. This was actually the first film in his neo-western trilogy of films that were exploring crime in the American frontier in the modern day. He wrote this film, then he wrote Hell or High Water, which I absolutely love, and he also wrote and directed Wind River. And it's really funny because Jon Bernthal, who pops up in Sicario, plays a very similar role in Wind River, both of them equally as scary. But Taylor Sheridan is a great writer. You combine that with Denis Villeneuve's direction, and then you bring in the greatest cinematographer of all time in Roger Deakins. And actually, Denis Villeneuve and Roger Deakins finally got Roger Deakins his flowers for Blade Runner in 2049. He finally won Best Cinematography at the Academy Awards. He would win it again with Sam Mendes in 1917, but this guy could take the Academy Award for any film that he has ever shot. The assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford is one of the best shot films I have ever seen, and one of the best films that Roger Deakins ever shot was with the Coen brothers in 1996's Fargo. So Roger Deakins he's the best. He really is the greatest cinematographer we've ever had. No matter what he shoots, it always comes out looking great. So you get a great cinematographer, you get a great writer, you get a great director, and then you bring in Johan Johansson doing the score for this film, and the score is just underneath everything, building the tension, just creating anxiety throughout the entire film. Feeling like a force in nature, a lot like Benicio del Toro's character, and that is the last piece to this puzzle, is the great acting in this film. We get Emily Blunt in the lead, we get Daniel Kaluuya in a supporting role, we get Josh Brolin, and then we get Benicio del Toro in a fantastic role, arguably his best role. That's why they did the sequel around his character, because he is just absolutely fascinating in this film. And this film actually has a very simple plot. We open this movie, we see Emily Blunt, Daniel Kaluuya, and a bunch of other FBI agents.
I am an FBI agent!
They're raiding a house. It's occupied by the cartel that's floating around the Mexican border, and they find a ton of dead bodies that they have actually just propped up in the wall and thrown drywall in front of them, and it is absolutely disgusting. You can see all of them. They're all sick, and they just can't handle the smell and the violence that just happened. And then while they're all standing there, the shed in the backyard also blows up, creating even more chaos. And Emily Blunt, she just wants to stop these people. She wants actual justice, and she thinks she's going to get it in the form of Josh Brolin and Benicio del Toro. Josh Brolin works for the CIA. Benicio del Toro, we're not too sure at the very beginning of this film what exactly he wants to do. We just know that he was a former prosecutor in Mexico, and now he's working with Josh Brolin. And then as the film unfolds, we find a lot more about what Benicio del Toro's character wants to do, what his mission is, because he's on his own path, and they want to use him essentially as a weapon. So this might be light spoilers going forward, because I do want to talk about Benicio del Toro's character, and to do that I got to talk about how his character ends up in the second act of this film. So if you want to skip ahead to the 4K Blu-ray review, you can do that right now, because it's revealed that Benicio del Toro's character is essentially an assassin, and the only way to get things done is really to operate outside the law. We can't just go into Mexico and take out the head of the cartel or whoever's running drugs up here to America. The director of the FBI lays it out to Emily Blunt's character. We've been prosecuting people. Are you feeling it out on the street? No, because we're not actually making headway with this, because we have to operate within the lines of the law. Josh Brolin's character has found a way where he can operate just outside the law, and that's why he brings in Benicio del Toro's character, because the guy who's the head of the cartel, well, he did something absolutely horrible to this man. When he was a prosecutor in Mexico, he had his wife and daughter killed in some of the most violent ways. Apparently, he had his wife beheaded and had his daughter dipped in acid. So, of course, Benicio del Toro, to this point, that's it. He's out for revenge, and Josh Brolin is going to use his character for that revenge and use his anger to finally bring down the cartel. But there are so many great sequences throughout this film that we see. Early in the film, when we're going into Juarez, Mexico, this is a long sequence. The score is just pumping underneath. It's shot beautifully. Like I said, Roger Deakins shot this film, and Denis Villeneuve, he wanted these big landscapes. Feels just like an epic, and that's that bombastic score just playing underneath everything, creating that anxiety, really selling the fear of what is going on in war as Mexico. And I mean, it just builds up the tension until the very end of the scene where we're on the highway and we see a bunch of low-level cartel members get out of the car, and then these characters have to defend themselves, including Emily Blunt, and she is just scarred by this, but she has to continue on in her mission to see what the point of all this is. She needs reasoning for all this. She needs the ends to justify the means. She needs to know why everybody is doing this, and eventually she is going to find out the reason why all of this has happened. But is it enough for her? Because she really saw stuff that she never expected to see, but I think by the end of the film, she understands what has to be done, but can she live with that for the rest of her life? There's also a great B plot in this film involving just a regular Mexican police officer and what he has to deal with in his day-to-day life, and trying to understand what he has to do to help his wife and son get away. And again, it ends in such tragedy. And that's another thing about this movie, including the way it's shot, is how it just feels so real and authentic, and it almost feels like a documentary of what we're seeing. But because it's just such a well-crafted film, you're honestly entertained throughout the entire 2-hour runtime. It's never boring. You see some very shocking and disturbing stuff, and it's going to stick with you by the end of this film, and it just feels so real, and it's just so well made. And I do believe that this is Denis Villeneuve's best film, and he had a lot of great players there to help him make a fantastic film. So even if you don't ever watch this 4K Blu-ray that we're going to talk about, I can just highly recommend Sicario. Do not let that one slip you by. And it's even worth it to check out the sequel to this one. I don't think it's as good. Denis Villeneuve didn't direct it, but it's still a pretty good action thriller. It's just something that's more forgettable than Sicario, which I actually think is going to become an all-time classic film. And here it is, the 2016 4K Blu-ray for Sicario. So this came out in the very, very, very early days of 4K Blu-ray, and I wanted to revisit it and see if it still holds up in 2024. I mean, this 4K Blu-ray, it's pushing 8 years old. So I believe the initial release was March 1st, 2016. So 4K Blu-rays have been with us for a very long time, and in the early days, they hadn't quite perfected the art, but this 4K Blu-ray is still floating around. You can actually buy it right now for $17.99. You might not get it with the slipcover. There's also a steelbook release, and it's always on sale for under 10 bucks. But is it worth it at that price? Does it need a new scan? Well, after exploring it, there are certain aspects to this 4K Blu-ray that still have stood the test of time, and that's including its beautiful packaging. If you're able to get it with the slipcover is very, very nice. You come underneath, it is the same artwork. You get a Blu-ray and you get a 4K Blu-ray as well with individual artwork on each. Now, I'm not too sure if the Blu-ray and the 4K Blu-ray actually came out on the very same day, or if the Blu-ray came out a little bit before. It came out in March of 2016, and, you know, that's not too long after the film was originally released in theaters, so I'm not too sure if the Blu-ray and 4K came out at the same exact time, but that Blu-ray is definitely the Blu-ray that was released, so that's what I was comparing it to. They both had almost the same exact menu system. They both had the same exact audio tracks on there, which is an awesome Dolby Atmos track. That Dolby Atmos track still stands up in 2024. Tested against the modern day Dolby Atmos track, it is still really, really, really good. I don't know if I can mix it any different. Early in the movie, when that explosion happens in the shed, you can just hear debris flying by you, and then you just kind of hear trickling in the background, you know, burnt debris hitting the ground. Absolutely a great mix on this. They designed it so well. You could see that they actually went in there and adjusted it. They were doing a great job mixing this Dolby Atmos track, and I still really appreciate that. You know, there's obviously still a little room for improvement, but out of everything on this 4K Blu-ray, that Dolby Atmos track really has stood the test of time, and it is fantastic, and it'll give your system a workout, and you don't have to worry about adjusting the volume going up or down. It all comes in crisp and clear. Now, the extras, there's only 4 extras, and they're all going to be on your Blu-ray disc, and it's just a bunch of featurettes. They're all pretty good featurettes, about 15 minutes on average, and you know, we're kind of exploring the cartel, we're exploring the way they shot this film, we're exploring the characters. I think they actually uncovered a lot with the filmmaking process. It's nothing that special, no making of documentary or anything like that. You know, in 2024, it would be really cool to get a new making of documentary looking back on this film, but overall, we do get almost everybody's thoughts who was involved in the creation of this film, so I don't really have any complaints complaints about it. I just would have liked more, but overall, they're still pretty good extras. Now, the visuals only have HDR10. This is kind of around the time when we were getting HDR10 or Adobe Vision. It's not like now where we know what studios will give us HDR10. This was in the early days. Some 4K Blu-rays had Dolby Vision. Most of them didn't at the time, especially in the early days. It was just HDR10. And this film was shot digitally, so it's not shot on film, so it's actually not being downscaled to 4K Blu-ray. It's actually technically being upscaled to 4K Blu-ray because it was shot in 3.4K, so a slight upgrade to the 4K Blu-ray, so it is a 4K intermediate, but it was just shot so beautifully by Roger Deakins that no matter what, the source material was going to be absolutely gorgeous, whether you watch it on Blu-ray or 4K Blu-ray. And it is actually a pretty noticeable jump from that Blu-ray to the 4K Blu-ray. It's much brighter, which I wasn't anticipating. That was one of the things back in the day when you go from a Blu-ray to a 4K Blu-ray. The jump wasn't that noticeable, but it was a pretty noticeable jump from that Blu-ray to 4K, and that's because, you know, we're downgrading it to the Blu-ray, and now we're adding HDR over it, so that's going to brighten things up, and you just notice so much more detail on the 4K Blu-ray. You know, Roger Deakins shot it amazingly. I've said it about 6 or 7 times in this review, but, you know, just those little details that he is able to catch with the camera. You know, we get to see those sunsets, those beautiful vistas. Oh my god, it's just a beautiful looking film, and it translated so well to the 4K Blu-ray format. Now, the only thing is there's some moments of unsteadiness, some moments where, like, the deep blacks, they kind of become gray, so it's a little bit noticeable, but again, an early 4K Blu-ray, and in comparison to other 4K Blu-rays at the time, we're talking about Christopher Nolan 4K Blu-rays, I think actually Sicario is better than most of those early Nolan 4K Blu-rays that we got. I actually think it holds up pretty well. It doesn't maybe match 2024 standards of 4K Blu-rays, especially for films shot on digital, but I think overall, it is still a fantastic 4K Blu-ray with great visuals. I wouldn't mind if they went back over this 4K Blu-ray, maybe threw Dolby Vision over it, just upgraded it a little bit, adjusted it, and then it could just be a perfect 4K Blu-ray. It's the same thing we're asking for Dune Part 1, is when Dune Part 2 comes out, why don't we go back and fix Dune Part 1, make it an awesome 4K Blu-ray. We know the potential is there, and it's the same thing with Sicario. There is a chance in the bones of this 4K Blu-ray that this can be a 10 out of 10 visuals. It's right there, but it's still really good, and I could definitely recommend the 4K Blu-ray, even at the price of $17.99, but keep a lookout for it. It's always on sale. No matter when a sale is going on, it always drops in price, and you could probably steal this one for under 10 bucks, and that's definitely the perfect place for this 4K Blu-ray. And how would I grade it on a score of 1 to 10? I would still give this 4K Blu-ray a really solid 8.5 out of 10. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it here for me on another episode of Let's Talk. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, turn notifications on. Then after you're done doing all of that, get out in those streets and tell your friends about us. But if you would like to support this channel financially, we do have channel memberships. That's where you can find our producers like John Doe Juggalo, Jason Martin, and Mr. Smelly Potato. Or you can even become a channel director like Frank's Media and Reviews, who also has a great YouTube channel as well. So make sure you guys head over there and check him out. But if you got no money to throw our way, we just really appreciate you guys checking out this video. It does mean the world to us. And if you enjoyed it, we'll be seeing you around.